And don't worry about it. Just train fucking hard, because that has stood the test of time and it continues to still work.
Now we're gonna go and I'm gonna go finish my Modelo and tequila shots, and I'm gonna probably get a couple more fucking tacos.
What's going on, Primeval Savages? Back with another Savage coaching video, and today we're going to talk about periodization. Periodization. So basically, for those of you guys that are not familiar, periodization it's basically breaking up your training, your workouts into blocks of time. And it's to take what I would consider a more surgical or strategic approach, if you will, right?
Strategery.
Yeah, strategery. So it's instead of going in there and just having your typical maybe bro split or just feeling as you go, you're planning it out. You're saying, like, for this block of time or for this day, it's going to look like this. Here's the amount of volume, here's the amount of work, et cetera, that's going into it. Now, what I wanted to talk about in particular, though, is not to get into all the depths of programming, because we can go really far down a rabbit hole,
right.
You know, getting into, especially some of these fancier, like nowadays with some of this, you know,
DP and everything.
Oh yeah, it goes way down. I mean, I've written some non-linear or undulated style programming before that. It's amazing. Like, you can look into it, and the further you look, it's like there's more and more.
It's deep.
Deep, yeah. It's deep. It's deep. So, but what I wanted to talk about was the fact that programming, to kind of take it a different direction, that programming or periodization is overrated when we talk about muscle hypertrophy.
Really?
Yeah. And so what's interesting to me is, and I just saw this on it was a 3D MJ podcast. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with 3D Muscle Journey, Eric Helms and their group of...
go watch it.
Yeah,
go watch it. They're
amazing
awesome
stuff. I really feel like they are still underappreciated for what they produce. But he was actually doing kind of just an open-ended conversation about periodization, and something that we've known for, I would say, at least the last year to 2 years, is that when it comes to muscle hypertrophy, it's not as specific as we once maybe thought it was. We really had this concept that, well, if I come at it like I would like a power lifter would come at a program, then I'm going to get superior muscle growth.
Right.
And it seems that the more that we learn about muscle hypertrophy, that there are certain drivers that are important, things like volume.
Correct.
But sets and reps and load and things are kind of all intertangled, it's starting to seem. And then you take it a step further into periodization, and it's like, well, are we seeing advantages of people that are periodizing versus not periodizing, or just kind of going into it?
Correct.
And the answer is that there seems to be very little difference. That
really,
and let's think about this for a second. For forever and a decade, it seems that bodybuilders, some of the highest level guys, they have just kind of intuitively gone into the gym, and then maybe they know, like, it's a chest, back, leg, shoulder day, whatever, right? And that's common. But this very particular, like, we've got to chase this percentage and this many reps to this point, it's been kind of more than an intuitive process. And I think a lot of this has to do with just, again, sheer volume and overload. I think that the reality is that if you are pushing yourself to failure and you're recovering, that you're going to experience muscle hypertrophy, and that it's not quite as complicated as everybody wants to make it out to be.
Interesting.
And this might, I don't know if this bends your mind at all, because you're a strategic guy.
Yeah, I'm very.
Does it upset
very
you?
details oriented? No, not at all. It just there's so much out there that has been said that, hey, the old thing was 3 on, 1 off. So train for 3 weeks, take a week off. Train for 3 weeks, take a week off. Now we know that's not applicable to everybody. So that's if you're doing a cookie cutter program for somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing, that ratio is fine, sure. But I've come across different concepts like adaptive resistance, to where your body just after a while it says, screw it, I'm done, I'm not going to keep growing anymore, you need to give me a break. But is that more when you start to approach under recovery and overtraining territory, or is there some mechanism in your body where it actually resists growing bigger until it's actually had that chance to break and then super compensate?
Yeah, well, so I think that's interesting, and that would be something that a periodization program would would help you. Yeah, would address that because you have like something like a deload. Now, and this is where I think that I want to be able to explain myself because I'm still not anti-periodization in muscle hypertrophy. And I want to explain why. But, so to get to your point is, yeah, I think what exact mechanism it is, I'm not sure, but we could say that something that would go into the overtraining territory would lead you to resisting progress in you know, whether it's nutrient deficiency, not sleeping enough, whatever it may be, but you not getting optimal recovery is not allowing you to take a step forward.
Correct.
Now, interestingly enough, though, most of and we would equate that to volume. Volume is basically sets times reps times weight lifted. So you can say that it's total workload, 80,000 pounds or 20,000 pounds of work or whatever it is, right? So we would say that, well, you're doing too much volume, which is leading to that point.
Right.
Now, interesting is that volume has been the centerpiece of a lot of these studies, and I think it was Brad Schoenfeld recently it was Brad Schoenfeld and Brett Contreras, I think, and they were pointing out that there seems to not be a point at which hypertrophy has diminished. That the more volume, that the more hypertrophy. So it just keeps climbing.
Yeah.
But there was a point of diminishing return where it was like you had this high amount of climbing where it was like, say, 10 sets per muscle group. And then all of a sudden it kind of tapered, but it was still moving up. It was just creeping.
Correct.
So you could double that amount of volume and still get half of the result as what you got in the initial 10 sets.
Right.
And so I think that's where you get into these weird little like gray areas of saying, to push to that level, let's say you get past 10 sets, because that's where most people seem to like really get a high level of muscle hypertrophy.
Yeah.
Let's say you start crossing past it, you go to 15 sets, 20 sets. Well, you really need to be aware of the fact that are you as an individual able to recover? Are you as an individual getting injured?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's where Dr. Mike Israetel brings up the concept of maximum recoverable volume. So say you can perform 30 sets of chest every week, and there's probably guys that do it, but your body, just because you can perform it, doesn't mean you're getting that adaptation that you're looking for. You're not actually getting the growth because your body can't recover that well no matter how much food or sleep you cram into you. It's not going to work. You've exceeded your ability to recover effectively, and it's diminishing returns like you mentioned.
Right. Well, you know, to kind of like go back to the periodization. So here's my thought, is that for most people out there, particularly probably watching this, most of you guys are chasing gains. You want muscle growth. That's the primary goal.
Correct.
If that is your, actually let's take that even further back. Instead of saying primary goal, if your only goal is to get bigger, okay? And I say only because that's very important, because when you start saying, well, I also want to be stronger, I also want to be faster, those things do change.
Complicates the situation.
Yeah, complicates the situation. Because I would not have this conversation about periodization with a powerlifter or anybody doing some sort of performance. Like periodization is very important. Specifically with like powerlifting, like linear periodization is incredibly effective. Now, let's assume that muscle growth is all you care about. Okay, I hear you. That's all you want, right? that's gonna get you laid. Cool. So the deal is that it is smart to go into it with a strategic approach, in my opinion, and to set standards so that you know how to move the chest piece when needed. Kind of like what he mentioned. If you were to go in there and all of a sudden you start noticing that you're not recovering, right? But you haven't really even been paying attention to what the fuck you're doing, how many sets you're doing, how much weight, or what exercises you're specific on, then it makes it a little complicated to actually make coaching adjustments.
Correct.
So I think that periodization is still a largely beneficial thing to someone with to gaining muscle hypertrophy, because you still are going to be able to get that same amount of volume. But if you are watching this and you're thinking, well, the idea of a program and programming for myself, or buying a program, working with a trainer, or just following something so specific turns me off, then don't overcomplicate it. Just go fucking do work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just go in the gym, make sure you hit every muscle group, you're getting 10 sets of each muscle group minimum, and don't worry about it. Just train fucking hard, because that has stood the test of time and it continues to still work. Now, if you are maybe already doing that and you want a next level, I would say that it's still always a reasonable idea to write this out and actually take a strategic approach. Now, personally, if you are going the periodization route, I would say that you need to probably consider sticking with the undulated periodization or the nonlinear model versus the linear. I think that there's just too many moving parts and pieces to hypertrophy that if you're doing a strength phase for 4 to 6 weeks, you're missing out on benefits that can be playing into other things or whatever. So, so I'd say a non-linear approach. But besides that, like, yeah, I say do it. Fuck yeah. So, anything else, Robert? What do you add, man?
I would say track your progress, and if you're gonna try to do the same workout several weeks in a row, write down your sets, reps, and even your rest intervals, because all of these are going to affect it. You have no idea how to progress if you don't know what you've done previously, whether that's monitoring closer rest times, whether it's if you moved 4 sets of 10 for 60 pounds on shoulder press, move it up to 65 next week, or go do 4 sets of 12. Either go to 4 sets of 10 for 65 or 4 sets of 8 for 65 if you can't get 10 reps, or just progress the amount of reps that you're doing within that set, or add an additional set on the back end of it. But track your stuff so you know how to progress and you're actually pushing your body, because if you're not pushing your body in the next workout, you're not going to grow anyway.
Yeah, and he's speaking to progressive overload, and like there are some people that I think you guys are crazy nutbags, and you can push yourself off the edge of the cliff and do it intuitively. There's also quite a bit of people out there that they don't know what going to that level looks like. And those are the folks that contingencies really help out. I mean, to say that, that over there is where you need to be helps somebody that doesn't know what it feels like to go to that overload state is. If you're just a bro you've been a gym rat most of your life, and you love the pain of just lifting and stuff, you're probably already experiencing overload and you're probably seeing progress. Okay, so I think on one hand we can't be so prude and almighty that we say, man, bros don't know what the fuck they're doing, because the fact is that hard work is really the underlining thing in overload. But then on the other hand, you can't be so ignorant that you don't understand that taking a more strategic, scientific approach is going to benefit you. So that's it, guys. Do me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button if you like these videos. I would love to hear your feedback down below in the comments. Also, Robert and I are looking for more topics to talk about, and we'd like to know, do you like this just kind of open format chatting conversation where we get into like an educated piece, whether it's supplements or training? If you do like that, let me know. We'll see you on the next one.
Now we're gonna go and I'm gonna go finish my Modelo and tequila shots, and I'm gonna probably get a couple more fucking tacos.